Suki! Where have you been? Come play with me. It's wonderful here.
We know what fairy blood, even like hybrid fairy blood, does to vampires. Well, what if you have pure, undiluted fairy blood, and what if you drink the whole fairy? Obviously, you get high, and obviously, the sun has no effect on you up until a point. Eric is probably experiencing something that he hasn't experienced since he was a human, and which is 1,000 years ago. So there is a kind of gleeful joy to this that is really fun and funny, but also tragic because he can't have that on a regular basis. And I think his realization of that leads to a sort of vulnerability with Suki, that she's just like, this guy who I'm usually terrified of and who I hate is this incredibly vulnerable, soft, gentle creature that I find myself falling in love with. What is this all about?
Suki, I think at this point in this episode, she sees that he needs her help, and that she feels a kind of motherly warmth for him, but it's also clear that he loves her.
If you kiss me, I promise to be happy.
You don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what she wants from him, and you know that he's more like a child than anything else, but there's still something very kind of, romantic and sexual happening between them.
Bill is still trying to figure out what the hell is going on with Eric, and where is he, and what happened with these witches, and so I don't blame him that he's, trying to relax a little, and this beautiful woman has sort of like come on to him and basically offered herself to him.
Bill finds out that, in fact, she is his direct descendant.
I guess these are the problems you have to think about when you are a vampire and you live for hundreds of years. You really have to keep track of the lineage of your family, which is something I think that was painful for him to do.
I must go.
I think he just put that all behind him and just closed that door. Well, something fell through the cracks.
You're my great-great-great-great-granddaughter.
So that's awkward.
Forticio, Forticio, Ayaysen.
Tenéis que quemar una bruja como es debido. Primero las pantorrillas,
Forticio, Ayaysen.
los muslos y las manos.
And when you have characters who are hundreds, even thousands of years old, then you get to do these flashbacks that actually take you to a different time in history. And that's really fun, and it's really freeing as writers. And it also allows you to understand these characters and why they behave the way they do.
We find that Marnie is being possessed or communicating with the ghost of Antonia, who was burned at the stake in the Inquisition.
In the case of Antonia, this is a woman who was murdered simply for being what she was. You have to come up with something that's going to make a grudge last 4 centuries. And I sort of think that would do it, being burned at the stake.
It feels like Marnie wants to channel her because Marnie is into all this stuff, but I don't get the sense that she's necessarily aware of what it means, and she certainly can't control it.
I think when Marnie invited that spirit, she didn't really know what she was doing, but she was just kind of struck by the power and the magic that she felt. Marnie is a sort of relatively proficient Wiccan practitioner, but Antonia is a sorceress. I think in Marnie's dream, when she actually sees what happened to Antonia 400 years ago, when they lock eyes, that's a point where there's going to be no turning back.
By the end of the episode, Marnie has cast a spell on Pam and made her flesh rot.
Mortuus, Mortuus.
There's an arrogance to Pam that comes from being, I think, a relatively young vampire, of just assuming she hasn't been around for hundreds of years, so she just assumes that, she's the most powerful thing there is and that she can get her way about everything. To play a vain vampire who is decomposing and the frustration when bits of her face are falling off, it's really funny, and it's also terrifying because unless she finds a way to reverse this spell, eventually you decompose to a point where you're no longer alive.
Cadáver ambulante, corrupto y no usado. Vedos por lo que sois.